Right. So by the time teams join, I think people are there for the tea break and all. So we'll just a minute or two. We'll kind of wait. Uh, excuse me. Okay. Will this? Okay. Absolutely yes. So this will have dev and test. Obviously, we'll be covering dev and test through Visual Studio Online. So yeah, so I'll be talking about dev and test and entire scenario. So yes, yes, it's possible, and we'll discuss that part. So let me start off. Let me have that interaction going, and then probably we'll start covering those queries, right? So anyways, we are almost 15 minutes late. So let me give you an overall context. And so first of all, I'm Himanshu Bhardwaj. I'm working with Microsoft, and it's been around a few years now. And from a dev test perspective, and from a visuals, how do we kind of cover this? So this would be a kind of an agenda. We'll talk about Visual Studio Online. We'll talk about how and why you should kind of care about having your artifacts, and how does it help you achieving your dev test scenarios. In fact, I'll show you a demo after that. And we'll also talk about what could be the reasons why you could have, or why you should be using kind of a Visual Studio Online. And we'll also talk about how you can quickly start using Visual Studio Online and have your entire dev test scenarios ready in few minutes using the cloud capabilities, right? So that would be the kind of an agenda. I have my colleagues in other rooms also, since this is kind of getting, we have these 3 rooms where we have projecting it. So we have teams in both the rooms. So if you have questions for the team members who are sitting in other rooms, if you have queries there, you can locally ask them. So Mukta is sitting in one room, and then we have other team members who are there, part of the rooms. So, one, I'm answering to this team, but yes, if you have queries in other rooms, you can ask them as well. So, let's start off now. So, let's try to understand from an overall perspective what exactly Visual Studio Online is. And before I come to the Visual Studio Online, how many of you are using Team Foundation Server here? Okay, great. So, you can think of Visual Studio Online as an extended version, or maybe you can say a hosted version, on the cloud. So you do exactly with respect to source code, agile planning, team rooms. You can manage your test cases. You can have your feedback mechanism management going through using Team Foundation Server or Visual Studio Online. And obviously continuous build and continuous delivery. Now all this scenario which have been mentioned here are part of your on-premises, which is Team Foundation Server, which you have been using and till now. And then you have this Visual Studio Online, which is basically having all these capabilities, and then you also have additional to this the services like build service, your continuous delivery and deployment service. You have application insight, right? You have load testing, elastic load testing as a service which is available. I think few of you must be there in the lab which we did in the morning. And basically we talked about and walked through of how these different kinds of services extend the capabilities which are there inside Team Foundation Server onto the cloud when we host it as form of Visual Studio Online. I understand this name is slightly misleading. You think that it's a IDE. Many times people say that it's an IDE on cloud. It's nothing of that kind. IDE will still be there on your premises, or you can have virtual machine on the cloud and you can have your ID there. In fact, I had a scenario that also I thought probably I'll show it to you, but I think in the interest of time, probably today we'll leave that. Right, so from an overall perspective, this is what Visual Studio Online is. These are the different kind of additional capabilities which it offers. Just to give you a quick background, so build service basically means you're having a build on the cloud, right, with not having your resources infrastructure on your premises. You're using the cloud capabilities, right? Load testing as a service is basically pointing out to you that you don't have to create infrastructure for load testing. If tomorrow somebody tells you, okay, you need to run this application with 50,000 virtual users, creating an infrastructure itself takes some good amount of time. And with load testing as a service, I can do it in minutes, right? I just need to mention these many virtual users. I don't have to create those many virtual machines, or don't have to provision that many virtual machines. It just happens on the fly, right? It also offers you continuous deployment in Azure. So this is what I'll demonstrate to you. Load testing is something which I will not demonstrate today. We'll talk about build service. We'll demonstrate deployment on the Azure. So whatever you have built up, I just quickly want to push it on the cloud. I want to see how it is working, right? Application Insight. So once your application is there on the cloud, so people keep asking, okay, what this solution, Visual Studio Online or Team Foundation Server, and we have been talking about it's an ALM solution, Application Lifecycle Management solution. And then theory comes in, okay, from a SDLC, does it manage from requirement to test case management? What we are talking is beyond this. We are talking when your application is on production, it is running, and then you want to figure out the challenges. You want to figure out what is the usability of your application, what are the time your application was facing challenges, when it was CPU utilization was going high, and other different types of telemetry from an application perspective, and that is where Application Insight helps you out, right? It is available on cloud, and now it can be also used as a service for your applications which are hosted on your environment. This code editing as a capability is basically, we discussed in the morning also while I was giving that lab, is basically talking about you have the capability there was a project which was launched in Monaco where you can go ahead and do your codings and corrections using, if you're developing a web application, using the browser capability. Right, so the point I'll come back to why we should kind of care about having these kinds of artifacts on the cloud. And how many of you have heard the morning keynote where Mr. Anand Kulkarni was talking about? Anyone attended? Okay, great. Yeah, so 2 basic points he mentioned. Anyone can answer those? So there's a goodies as well. So if I'm asking, you can, two important points. Yes, please.
One was from idea to execution can be faster. The second was transformational.
Correct. So basically agility and user experience, right? So these are the 2 key areas which he focused about. And if you see, this is exactly where we are matching. And I'll give you entire structure of it in a next slide. I have just 3-4 slides, then we'll move on to the demo part. But if you see from an overall perspective, this is a solution where we are talking about planning, whether it's your agile portfolio management, your Kanban board, the way you want to follow your processes in your organization, work item taggings, whether it's with respect to dev and test, where we are talking about flexible version controlling, load testing capabilities, editing on the browser, monitoring the application. This is what we were talking about, application insight and stakeholder feedback, right? So user experience, giving that response back coming from the users so that they can feel it and kind of, experience what you have kind of developed, give you back feedback, and it becomes a fast cadence. And that is what is very, very key about Visual Studio Online, or for that matter, TFS as well. It provides you with that fast cadence. Basically, you can have the responses from the stakeholders, from your customers, from your quality team, back inside so that you can, take an informed decision, right? Exactly. So when you talk about in a length, DevOps is a bigger concept, but yes, these are the pieces which help you achieve the DevOps, right? Because Agile is in the industry for almost what, more than 10 years now, and people have more or less kind of transformed them while they're developing the projects into some form or the other of Agile. They may not call it, they may call it as a mix kind of a process which have evolved. People are following iterative, some in other fashion, but then overall, the net, the point is that teams have kind of evolved, they've started developing fast, but the challenge is on the other side. You develop, you are ready with the code, but it takes a week to provision the infrastructure. It takes another 1 week to kind of get in approvals and get it set it up and kind of your ball rolling to the other side. And that is where this is trying to break that barrier, right? And that is where you see on the right-hand side, I have this release management which talks about automated build and CI's continuous deployment, right? For which we'll see a demo today. And in the center, if you see, we are talking about team rooms, code discussions, or work item charts, which is basically more from the fact how you can collaborate. So team room is a concept inside Visual Studio Online or Team Foundation Server, basically helps you out to have all the events getting registered at one location. And on top of it, you can go and interact with your team members. When I say events getting registered, what I mean here is any code changing happening, any work item changes happens, you can trigger an event which gets listed inside your Team Foundation server. How does that help? It helps you in a scenario where you are out from the office for certain period of time. You come back and you can't go to those 200 emails and figure out what is happening. I can go to that point of date, okay, on 13th of March or 18th of March, what was the 19th of March, what was the activities which have been done. So today you are here, what is happening inside the team, you can open it up, have all the listing there, you have the informed decision. So, and if you see from a broader perspective what we are talking about, a single place of truth where you have all the information recorded, whether it is coming from customers, whether it is coming from your stakeholders, whether it is coming from your project team, so no one can go back on this is what I said, no, this is what you have done, right? So all that information is getting stored, getting worked out from this one simple location. And if you see from a bottom line, it says no infrastructure, so that's more of a point we all understand from an Azure perspective. And these are the 2 points which I thought, and specifically after that discussion, I put these 2 points, agility and user experience, right? So user experience is more from the fact that you are getting responses from your stakeholders, you are getting your responses from your business guys, business teams, your customers, right? And how you can capture them, have it in a single place, and make sure what is expected is what is getting delivered. Yeah, please.
The previous slide you mentioned something about code collaboration. Is it, does Visual Studio Online have provision for code reviews and finally documenting?
Yes, absolutely. So you can go ahead and have code review. Team Foundation Server is basically, you have these capabilities where you can ask for the code review, your peers can do a code review, you can have a code review information getting stored there inside Team Foundation Server. And yes, please. It's a part of a Visual Studio Online. It's a capability available as part of, if I'm not mistaken, if it is still under preview or it has come as a full-fledged, but yes, this was a project which was started, I think, 8-10 months back, which was available. Yes, it's available. It's available. Absolutely, it's a fantastic question. So, if you see from an overall perspective, Visual Studio Online or Team Foundation Server does not restrict you for any specific ID. You can use your Eclipse ID, you can use your Xcode, you can use obviously Visual Studio. What it also gives you here is that while you are creating your, you're interacting with your IDE, you can also choose what kind of version controlling you want to do. Whether you want to do a centralized version controlling, which is offered by Team Foundation Server version controlling capabilities, right? Or which is becoming very popular today, distributed version controlling. If you are having a project which is more modular in nature, modular approach is there, and then in the later part you want to merge everything and have a solution, people are using Git for that matter, right? So it also offers you a capability to have Git integrated with Team Foundation Server, and as you know, Git also supports many more IDs, so you can check in your code from there as well. No, so currently we have two version controlling capabilities. Either you can use Team Foundation Server version controlling capability, or you can have Git version controlling capabilities along with Visual Studio Online or Team Foundation Server. It will get checked in into the Visual Studio Online. So code will reside inside the Visual Studio Online. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get that. No, so Git, okay, it's a good question. So I'll just clarify that part. So when TFS, Team Foundation Server, integrates with Git, it is a specific version or kind of a wrapper where it will be available as a private. It's not GitHub kind of a scenario or a service where you are keeping the code and it is available to the public, right? When you are using Git with Team Foundation Server, basically you are telling that this particular team will be using, so ideally, if you see from an overall scenario, although I'll talk about it, 5 users, if you want to have a small team who are working, you are an individual developer, or you are a hobby developer, you are working in a small team with 5 members, Visual Studio Online is free. You can go ahead and register and kind of start start using all these capabilities starting from left to right. So whether it's code repository, build, test, deployment on the cloud, this is where we were talking about monitoring and telemetries which can come from application insight, and then you have kind of getting that information back to the developer so that they can work on it, right? So from an agility point of view, why I said this is important, reason being you are able to get this all done quickly, and since your cadence, your cycles improves, obviously your product to the delivery is becomes faster. Think of a situation, Visual Studio or this Team Foundation Server who are kind of tracking this product from an overall perspective used to come after every 2 years, 2 or 3 years, right? There was 2008 version, then 2010, then 2012. Today, every 3 weeks you get a new feature on Visual Studio Online, on production, every 3 weeks. Can you imagine? And these features are published, are there for the users to use every 3 weeks. That's the time span we are talking about. And this cannot be achieved until unless you have this agility in place. You have this kind of a scenario which is kind of a very fast cadence, giving that response back to the developers so that they can work on it and kind of push it to the production, right? So if anyone is using Visual Studio Online, don't get kind of shocked if every after 3rd week you have certain new features which is available for you to consume, right? Although if you talk about Team Foundation Server as an on-prem version, every 3 months you get an update, right? This is more from a hybrid environment structure. So if you think it as whether you are working on-prem or you are using the infrastructure at the cloud. So for example, you are having virtual machines on the cloud, and from there you are running your Visual Studio or Eclipse or Xcode or any specific ID, and then you want to access Visual Studio Online and have this kind of a circle. That is where these scenarios fit into it. I'll just quickly move on to this. I think we have already talked about Team Foundation Server, centralized, and Git as a repositories which are supported. Important point to note here is both can be under one collection, right? So people who understand Team Foundation Server, the concept of collection, the concept here is basically I have multiple projects, team projects, which are under one umbrella, right? So I can have a Team Foundation version controlling capability and the Git all working under one umbrella. So that's the kind of flexibility you have. No, 2 different team projects. So 2 different team projects. One team project can be a Git, another can be your TFVC. Yeah. Come again? Yes, why not? You can create a project and then you can kind of use the build and deployment capabilities of the Git, of the TFS to do that VSO. Now I'll quickly jump onto the demo part. Uh, okay. So first I'll go to the Visual Studio Online. Okay. So I think this is more the problem of resolution. Yeah. Is it visible now? Yes. Okay. So if you see, this is where I'm at the home page of the Visual Studio Online. In the last one slide, I'll also show you how quickly you can kind of, get started with using Visual Studio Online for whatever activities you're doing in your projects. So if you see from a Visual Studio Online perspective, on the top you're seeing, basically it gives you this load testing as the capabilities, rooms. This is where it is talking about from an overall perspective. Since I've already logged in and I'm a valid MSDN user, otherwise it would have also shown me that I have a trial version for 90 days if it is I'm using it. In the bottom, if you see here, I have these recent projects, right? And I'll drill into this one of the projects from here. And this is teams who have been working with Team Foundation Server will be quite aware of this. It's exactly the same view. This is where you are able to see the sprint information, right? Burn down chart for me. I have certain tiles which I have fixed for myself, work in progress, how many block tasks are there which are kind of, which we need to look at, how many are the recent changes which have happened, how many are the stale work items. So the work item which have been created at certain point in time people have still not started working on it. So these are nothing but the queries which are created inside the Team Foundation server, which can be pinned to your dashboard. Now it can be your dashboard, it can be your team's dashboard, different kinds of options are there for you to pin it up. As a management level, you want to track what is happening at different teams. You can have a dashboard which is a view of all the teams. At an individual level, you can have your separate queries which can be kind of pushed to your dashboard, which you can look at. I also have some build information. I'm also seeing stale work items from a user perspective. So how many? So I identified 11 of them are there, but who are the people whom on this these work items are kind of mapped to? So we can have this kind of information. These are all charts and graphs which you can create at your will. This is all information coming in from SQL Analytics from a backend. You can have multi combinations of these charts and information. Now I'll quickly jump onto the work section here. One thing on the top, if you notice, I am inside Visual Studio Online, then Azure Conference VSO project which I've created. Inside this, I am inside a web UI team. So that's where I was talking about this project portfolio management aspect, right? So at a project portfolio management, I have a project Azure Conference, right? Under which I have a web team, database team, multiple such team. If I click here, you'll be able to see I have a database team. I can go and browse all the teams. Since I'm an administrator, I'm able to see all of them. But as a user who will be responsible or who will be kind of having those access to that particular project or team will be restricted to that particular section. And this is where you see this backlog, right? Slightly, I have to keep moving up and down because for you it's full screen. For me, it's kind of a very small screen. So, Right, so if you see here, what we have done here is, I've created certain backlogs, certain requirements, right? So it's as easy as going, creating new backlog. You can always move it up and down, so you can set the priorities of which is important for your team, right? And this is not a flat tree structure. As of now, you are seeing that. If you go ahead and click the features, what you're able to see here is the features, and under which you have these kinds of product backlogs. If I go further right to it, I have also configured the state, I have configured the efforts which will be required, I have configured the area path, I have configured the sprint under which these kinds of these requirements would be addressed. So all that information gets listed out here, right? And all these columns are customizable. So you can go ahead and you have these multiple columns, you can bring in many, you can remove all of them. I'll not go into the details of this. But the important aspect is this board. This is where you are able to kind of visualize. You can go ahead, have your stand-up meetings in the morning. You can have this kind of a board there at your central location where your team sits, so that you can monitor. You have a clear view of what is happening, right? So how many of them are into news? How many are approved? How many are my blocked requirements? How many of them are into committed state? Who is owning it? So I have Satish, I think, who is on the right of the room. I have Mukta, who is on the left side of the room. All of them kind of, assign certain requirements. Some of them are under approved. I can change at any point in time who is responsible for it, right? So all that information, and this is very, very importantly, this is a touch screen. So I touch enabled, sorry. So this is basically, I can take this and kind of move it to the next section. So it also helps you while you are interacting with your team. You can, if you see, while I did this, there's something which got changed here. Can anyone notice this? Yeah, at the top it became 3 and it became red. Basically what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to control what and how much it should go inside my pipe. Right? So how much it should be there in the approved. I don't want 3 requirements or 5 requirements to be there in the approved state at any given point in time, because I'm following in a Scrum methodology. I have 15 days. I just want to make sure that not more than 2 requirements should be there in the approved state. Right? So that's a kind of a, yeah.
Is at the storage level, or it could be also at the efforts level?
It can be at efforts level also. So this Kanban board is available at all the 3 levels. It's there at a feature level, it's there at your requirement level, it's there at your task level. Right? So I'll drill into that as well. The concept I'm trying to tell you here is that I can have a control, right? So I'm just trying to kind of have a restriction that, okay, at any point in time, this is what I'm looking at, this is the flow I want to manage. Similarly, what I can also go ahead and do here is I can go and customize these columns. So you liked, okay, the way I've created this block as a column, I can go ahead and do customize, and I can add many more columns here so that I can further streamline what is going and what is kind of coming out. If you further go down, now as of now we were talking about features and backlogs, let's go to the sprint. And that's where we start defining our task, right? So a similar board, you will have a view of it. Yes, absolutely. So both of them are at equal parity. The only difference is Visual Studio Online, as I said, every 3 weeks you will have certain information flowing to you. Here, any update happens after a quarter, right? So if you see here now, what I'm showing you is a board which is basically nothing but a task board, right? So how many of them are at to do? How many of them are kind of in progress, right? And who is assigned to? So as of now, this dashboard talks about from a user perspective. I can go ahead and change it to my backlog perspective. And I can see, okay, for this requirement, how many tasks are there, how many have been done, who is doing it at any point in time, and where are we at any given time, right? So we'll move slightly faster than this. I can go ahead and I'll take these queries. Just give me another 15-20 minutes. I just want to complete this flow. On the top, you can see the burned down charts and other stuff. The internet is slightly weak here, so that's the reason I just want to quickly. Okay, now this is a place where you can create your own queries. That's what I was talking about. So what I did quickly before coming to this session was I created a query for myself, which is nothing but a stale work item, right? And in this work item, I said any query, any task, any work item which have been created 2 days and has not been addressed, till now, will come under a stale work item. So I can quickly go here and run this query. So I have to do a little bit of realignment of the board of this. So just give me a minute here. And then what I can also do here is I'll go to the charts, and this is where I'll show you the capability. So whatever on the dashboard we want to see is available here. So you can create these queries, my queries, shared queries, right? Team favorites, so something which you want to give it to the team which can be used across teams, right? And then it is something. So yeah, so this is where you can define the chart. So one is we are talking about from a query perspective. Another is, if you remember in the home page, I was showing you a chart, and this is the place where you create these different kinds of charts, right? So so while this is coming up, I'll just quickly create a new chart for you. Right, and let's take, you want to see a chart through assigned, and you want to see for a duration of time how that is happening, who is kind of working on those charts, or sorry, on those work items, the stake items which have been assigned. You have these multiple different options to create them. You can, change the color coding of these. You say, this is, you want to make it more sensible to your team. This, you can quickly go ahead, modify them, and just click OK. This query, this chart gets saved, and you can pin it to your dashboard as well, right? So it is available for all of them. People know this is what is happening. These are the kind of work items which have not been touched, and these are the people who are responsible for it, right? So I can just go ahead, click here and pin to home page, and that's where it goes, right? Then if you see from a code perspective, so one of you asked about whether the code will reside on my machine or it will reside on Team Foundation server. So all of this code is available on through the web, the code capability entire, it gets registered there. Obviously you will have code on your machine as well, but you will have entire code checked in inside Team Foundation server, which is available. You can download it there. You can restrict the user so that it does not get downloaded. It is only a view permission. All that setting can be done here. But the overall point here is you have the option to explore. As of now, I have these many different kinds of projects. I have Azure Conference, I have First Project, Nirvana Project. So these are the different kinds of projects that have been created. I can go ahead and see the history. I can compare what has got change in the change set information. I can use the shelf set, and that is where, how many of you are using shelf set? Great. So that's an information, yeah, right? Rather than checking inside the code, I can create a shelf set, information gets stored there, and whenever I want to check out either me or somebody else, right, kind of take it out from the shelf and kind of start working. So I don't have to create those multiple versions on my version controlling solution. Similar to this, you can go ahead and define your builds and run your builds, queue your build from the browser itself. You cannot create a build definition from TFS. For that, you need a specific IDE. But yes, you can kind of queue it and other stuff. And from a testing perspective, you can go ahead inside the testing. You can create your test plans. You can create your, decompose them into a test cases. Those test cases can further be, you can write test steps against those test cases, which can be run using the Team Foundation server. So all those test cases, you can run them. using a Team Foundation Server capability. Now, another very different and important aspect which I thought will generally make sense is people keep on using it's, we have this product Excel, right? And people use it for all different reasons, for all different kinds of work. So I also quickly thought, let's give you an overview of, so all of you have the Excel sheets, you're using it. Now, you see here, if I have a Team Foundation Server, I'm using it, I have this Team tab in my Excel sheet, or whether it's my PowerPoint, whether it's my MPP, whether it's any of the Office solution, I will have this Team kind of a tab enabled there. And what I can do here is, I can create new list. So I clicked on the extreme left, there is a section called new list, right? And what I'm doing is, I'm connecting to Team Foundation Server / Visual Studio Online. So currently I'm connecting to Visual Studio Online basically. And I'm facing some net issues, so that's the reason it's slightly slow. So what it's showing me here is, I have selected a service, and then I have under default collection, I have these team projects, Azure and VSO. I'll connect to the VSO project. I'll say connect. It's asked me which query you want to see. I can have it in a different format. As of now, I'll just go ahead with the, okay, I selected the wrong, I think, project. Anyways, let's go ahead and just show it to you what is kind of, I hope I have data here. No, I don't have a data here. So anyways, I selected the wrong project. It has to be Azure Conference. I selected the VSO. Anyways, so the concept here is, I can get integrated with my Visual Studio Online and my Office solutions. So teams who are more familiar using Excel, you want to be there, live there. Important aspect here is, data also lives here. It's not kind of just a static information, it's a dynamic information. I can any point in time modify this data, and I have an option, if you see on the left, extreme left, publish this. And it happens at the real time. So the way I fetch that information, all these kinds of column, the way it will push it back. All right? So the overall, if you see from a view perspective, this is what you can achieve. Exactly in a similar line, you can do it with if you're using MPP and you want to push your project artifacts to the Team Foundation Server or Visual Studio Online and push it back as well. Let's now move on to the dev and test part, right? So, yes, sorry? Correct, yes. So now this is a place where when I'm inside an IDE, so Visual Studio Express is end of life. There is no product now, Visual Studio Express. So there's a product called Visual Studio Community. Yes, it will work with that. But yeah, but intention is not to, work from that perspective. Anyways, we'll come to those queries later on. If you see, what I'm doing here is, I'm inside an IDE. I have my project here, right? And I have created a build definition. Just give me a minute. Right? So what I'm trying to do here is, I'm wanting to, obviously I can queue a build from here, or I can do a build from my browser, from where I can queue the build. So quickly what we'll do is, we'll go and just modify a certain value inside the code, right? rebuild it and push it for the deployment, and we'll publish it on the Azure, right? So I'm just mentioning ASP.NET and Azure. This is just an MVC project I have created here. Right, we'll check in this code. I've already checked in the entire solution onto the Visual Studio Online, right? That part I have already done. I'm giving some comment. What you don't see? Yeah? Actually, for me, it's a very, very small screen. Let me just, yep, yep, okay. I'll rebuild this solution. I've already created a build definition, which kind of having a connection with Azure and other stuff kind of thing. So I've just rebuilt my solution, and with the changes which I have done, I will quickly publish this onto the Azure, onto the cloud. While I'm doing a build, so let me finish that. So because I have done, I've used a continuous integration capability. What has happened at the back end here is, if I go to the browser, and I go inside this project, what I'll see that a build has been triggered, right? I'll go to the build option. I hope it quickly goes to that page. Very good. Yes, so if you see here, the moment I did a check-in, automatically the build has got triggered. And this is all what I have created inside my build definition, right? So I can have my entire continuous integration, and I can also have my continuous deployment, which can be configured inside the build definition. So the moment a check-in happens, you want to have a verification, that entire agility and the concept which we were talking about, you want that feedback continuously. You don't want a scenario where people keep checking in, and after a day or a two, you kind of run a build, and then the team is sitting late night just to figuring out what are the challenges, why the build has failed. Now again, kind of, working out and making that build pass. Rather than that, you can use a continuous. You may not use. You can have a timely build as well. Obviously, it depends on a project to project. But the concept here is you get that faster cadence, right? So why? Yeah.
So for code moving in a forward, it's okay because it's some kind of a deployment. But in database, it may not be that simple. So what are the patterns for deploying database in a forward?
Okay. A very good question. So we have a similar, we have a solution called release management, which is again a part of Team Foundation Server, right? And that is where you can use that solution to deploy it on-prem, on cloud, on your infrastructure on cloud. Let's assume you have virtual machines running, you want to deploy it there, right? It might be a thick client application. It's not only a website, so which we want to deploy. So all that is possible using a release management. And that is where you create a kind of a pipeline. This is more with respect to kind of, while I'm developing, I'm just kind of testing and using the capabilities. I just want to.
Any inbuilt support available for creating delta scripts, like whatever, cloud or non-cloud, but database in a lowest level, the schema moves on, right?
Correct.
Is there any tooling or something available which can somehow like compare my, let's say, dev database as part of a build process?
So if you're using Visual Studio, let's assume you're having a SQL. I'm just taking a scenario. If you're using SQL and you're using Visual Studio for creating all your tables, procedures, and other stuff, you can easily do what you're talking about. I'll come to that part. I'll just quickly want to kind of wrap this up. I'll be here around, right? And I hope this has kind of got completed on the other side, and this is where I had went ahead and published it. So this is where you'll see this, all these steps happening at the bottom, right? The publish activity is going on. It's, if you see at the bottom, this is where you'll be able to see. Yeah, exactly. So that's another concept which I wanted to talk about. So there is something called as smart unit testing now, right? The code which I have opened, I just need to say right click and say, smart unit test cases, create smart unit test cases. And that's where it creates all those different permutation and combinations with all the different parameters, whatever unit testing you want to do, right? You have still the full control wherein kind of you can limit it, increase it, decrease it, that's still there with you. But at the same time, so this is where the published activity has happened. I'll just quickly, last thing, what I'm trying to talk about will give you an idea here. I right click here and you see, you'll have something called a smart unit test. And this, mind you, this is not a skeleton which is getting created. This is actual test cases getting created with the parameter values, whatever logic you have created there, right? How it does that and all that, we'll discuss it offline. But the concept here is you can create these unit test cases, save it here, and run it as part of your build, run it as part of your local build, as part of your server build, as part of your deployment, wherever you want. So that's the point. It covers majority of the things. If you, probably if I could show you the entire stuff, if you want, it will take 45 minutes to do a demo of its entire smart unit test cases where, I'll write a small calculation logic and I'll show you how many test cases parameters gets covered there and what are we missing or are we able to cover everything. So if you want us to do this, probably I can come down, we can have a demo in your organization and we can do this. Important thing, this is also part of that agility which we were talking about. Everyone here in the room must be knowing unit testing is the most important thing. How many of you are doing unit testing here? Quite a few number. Hardly see that. But having said that, I'm talking about unit testing from an automation perspective, right? So there's a different definition which nowadays have it from a unit testing from an Excel sheet, people also doing it. So I'm not talking about, I'm talking about from a fact that, okay, you're doing unit testing by testing, as putting those assertion there in your code and testing the different logics, right? Yeah, so it's much beyond that. That was a way back the concept came. This is purely coming from an R&D research. There was a feature capability, I don't know how many of you aware of it, there's a capability called PEX, right? So yes, exactly. So this is more of an extension to this. Much more work have been done, and now this is fully supported by Microsoft. PEX was not something which was, it was more of an which came up, and this is now which is available as part of your editions. You can use it, make a, yeah. Sorry? 2015, it's available from 2015, yes. It's possible, yes, it's possible to deploy.
Couple of questions. One on the build. Is it a basic build configuration or is it STD to put in my own build script? I think probably an extension to what.
Yes, so absolutely. So I can have my own build scripts as well. I can have my PowerShell scripts coming in there. I can also, as I mentioned to that previous question, you can use those capabilities from a release point of view also to have it a further deployment as well.
Buy or I need to use another tool for setting up the configuration for build?
No. This is all what I'm showing is part of your few capabilities are coming from Visual Studio, no doubt about it, but majority of this from a management perspective is all coming from Team Foundation Server. Yep. Thank you, team. Thanks a lot. It's like there's a keynote session starting at 5:30. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So just 2-3 questions I'll take, right? So that I can pass on the goodies.